Hi, I'm Dr. Chad Larson. Thanks for joining me in another episode of Keep It Real. According to the National Institutes of Health, the NIH, 2 out of 3 adults in the US are either overweight or obese. So that's pushing up on 70% of the adult population in the United States are either overweight or obese. So as you'd imagine, researchers are frantically working on the nuances of fat storage and fat burning, and how different things like diet and lifestyle could influence that. Not only that, but when a person becomes overweight or obese, there's also the comorbidities that go along with that, like diabetes and heart disease. We know that being overweight or obese increases the risk factor for heart disease and obesity, and oftentimes that's what kills people, is those comorbid conditions that they are at a higher risk for. So researchers are adding always new information to our understanding and kind of the deep cellular and physiological nuances that happen in when the body is overweight. And there's a new hormone that probably you haven't heard of. It's called irisin. Irisin, I-R-I-S-I-N, is a really interesting hormone that was only discovered a few years ago. So if you ask your doctor, hey, have you heard of irisin? He might say, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. But there's a lot of cool information that is being studied about irisin and how to make the body produce more irisin, because here's what we've learned, is that the higher the level of irisin in the body, the more fat burning that happens. So a lot of interesting studies have been done, and here's what they figured out, is that the higher your level of irisin in the body, the more it causes your genes, remember, so certain environmental factors, diet, lifestyle, for good or bad, can influence and activate, in other words, turn on and turn off certain genes in your body. And those genes really dictate how your body functions. And so what they figured out is this newly discovered hormone called irisin causes certain genes to activate that convert your white fat into brown fat. Just think of it this way: white fat is bad, brown fat is good, because brown fat helps to, it's a better metabolic burner in the system. It helps with energy production, and it helps with improving your metabolism. So we want genes to upregulate our conversion of white fat to brown fat. That's a good thing. Also, what they found out this irisin hormone does is it inhibits the body's production of the white fat, the bad fat. So that's a fantastic combination that one hormone does for us. It helps to convert white fat into brown fat by upregulating certain genes that cause that to happen, and it decreases the production of white fat. So lots of studies have been done on this hormone, and not only with its connection to fat, but also with some of the comorbid conditions associated with obesity and overweight, which is heart disease. So what they found out is irisin also inhibits plaque formation in your arteries. Remember, when plaque builds up in your arteries, then it decreases the passageway through which the blood can flow. Remember, blood is carrying oxygen, and so it's helping the blood flow, it's helping oxygen get to the heart, get to the brain, get to all the other cells in your system. And so blood flow is really, really key. So if there's too much plaque in an artery, that's inhibiting blood flow through that artery. And what they have found out is this irisin hormone helps to inhibit plaque formation. And this is really key because if you get one of these plaques that build up in the arteries, if that gets so built up in there, it can break loose And when a plaque breaks loose in an artery, that could shut down blood flow through that artery very, very quickly. In fact, if it's in an artery like the left anterior descending, that can cause immediate death. And that's why they call that particular artery of the heart the widowmaker. The widowmaker, or the left anterior descending artery, it supplies oxygen and blood flow to such a key part of the heart that if it gets blocked by something like a plaque that breaks loose, the person will die nearly instantly. It kind of reminds me of a fairly recent death that was in the news. The actor Alan Thicke died of a heart attack at the age of 69, and he was dead within, I think, just a couple hours of that initial incident. I'm not sure, I don't have any extra information that anybody else would have on his condition and how he actually died, but it would stand to reason that he had some kind of massive heart attack. What also can happen when somebody dies that quickly is an aortic rupture. The aorta is a major blood vessel that supplies lots of blood, particularly the abdominal aorta below the heart. It's a major artery. If that ruptures, a person could also die very quickly. But this irisin hormone helps to inhibit plaque formation, which is, heart disease is still the #1 killer in the US, and we want to do as many things as we can to decrease the chance of developing heart disease. And by inhibiting plaque formation, that is a huge step in the right direction. So you might be wondering, well, great, how do I improve, or how do I increase this key hormone, irisin? And it's simple. I'm doing it right now. Exercise. Aerobic exercise. Moderate aerobic exercise is the best way to significantly increase your body's production of irisin. And it's one of these things that as they're trying to study different things about fat metabolism to help inform us clinicians of what we need to do to help modulate this epidemic of obesity and overweight. And this just further informs and justifies our common recommendation of moderate exercise, 30 to 60 minutes, more days than not. And there's lots of different activities that you can do that increase your heart rate, increase your breath rate, and that'll increase your irisin. So researchers have already always known that exercise helps with fat burning, but they didn't really know the fine mechanism. And so this study was just recently published, just a couple months ago this year, in the American Journal of Physiology, Endocrinology, and Metabolism. It's a key journal where a lot of very high quality studies are published. So it's very good information, and it does remind me a little bit of another hormone that I think is not as well talked about, which is leptin. Leptin, if you ask your doctor if he's heard of leptin, or if she has heard of leptin, she would likely say, yes, I've heard of leptin. We know a lot more about leptin. It's actually taught in the medical schools. Irisin is so new, it's probably not even taught in medical schools yet. But leptin is, and what we know is that a person can develop what we call leptin resistance. And that's not good, because leptin is a hormone that's produced in your fat cells, and it tells your brain, particularly your hypothalamus, that you're done eating. The hypothalamus helps to regulate whether you're hungry or not. And it has to receive certain chemicals from the rest of the body to say, are we good or are we not good? Do we need more food or do we not need more food? And this really key hormone that's produced by the fat cells is called leptin. And that tells your hypothalamus in your brain that you're full. You don't need any more food. So guess what happens in leptin resistance? As you'd imagine, if your hypothalamus is resistant to the information that leptin is telling them, then it's not going to flip that switch and tell you that you're hungry and tell you that you're not hungry. So in other words, you're going to maintain hunger. Your body's not going to tell you that you're full if you have leptin resistance. And so this is how people can very easily overeat. And they've studied leptin for many years now, and we understand that leptin resistance is a very common problem in people who are overweight and obese. And that hormone reminds me of another hormone that everybody's heard of, which is called insulin. And I'm making the connection because the way to fix leptin resistance is pretty much the same way to fix insulin resistance. So insulin resistance is a similar idea where insulin helps to regulate blood sugar metabolism. And if you get into insulin resistance, which means that you're on the pathway to prediabetes, glucose goes higher and higher in your bloodstream because insulin is kind of the key that goes into the lock of your cell. And if the cell doesn't open, if it doesn't accept glucose, then glucose is not allowed to go into the cell, and it keeps rising in the blood. And as glucose goes up in the blood, that can lead a person to diabetes. And you've heard all about the problems and complications that come with diabetes. If not, we'll be talking about it on future episodes. So the way to help fix insulin resistance and leptin resistance is by making some dietary changes. And here's a little physiological fact that is very simple to remember, but it is basically the base of how to reverse leptin resistance and insulin resistance. And what you have to know is that carbohydrates control insulin, insulin controls fat. In other words, the more carbohydrates, particularly the refined and simple carbohydrates like sugars, refined grain flour, causes significant increase of your insulin. And once that key has gone into that lock, the key being insulin, goes in and out of that lock so many times, the lock gets worn out. And that's what we call insulin resistance. So by decreasing or completely eliminating those types of foods from your diet, you can dramatically improve and decrease your insulin resistance. In other words, we call that, you can increase your insulin sensitivity. You can make your cells more sensitive to insulin, and that's a good thing. And it's the same protocol that's necessary to decrease leptin resistance. And so those are three key hormones to think about. The ones that we've known about for a long time, leptin and insulin, and then the new one, which is called irisin, are very much influenced by things like diet, lifestyle. So by researchers studying these, they can really help to inform us and justify some of the recommendations that we make clinically. Because with leptin resistance and insulin resistance, it's not just diet. Exercise also dramatically improves. Let's say insulin resistance, for example. There's multiple studies that have shown basic, moderate, regular exercise, the same kind of exercise that also helps to increase your irisin hormone, has also been shown to improve your insulin sensitivity. Even with one workout session, when you finish your workout from just a, let's say, moderate exercise with 30 to 60 minutes, just that one session can increase your insulin sensitivity. In other words, decrease your insulin resistance just once. And so you can imagine if you do that multiple times, you can really turn around an issue where there's insulin resistance and prediabetes. So, as we learn more about the nuances of fat burning and metabolism, we'll keep sharing that information, because 2 out of 3 adults in the US being obese and overweight is what we'd call an epidemic. That's an epidemic. And along with that, the comorbidities that we discussed, like diabetes and heart disease, it's a burden to the individual. It's a burden to their families. It's a burden to the healthcare system, and it's just not the ideal state of health. And making sure that we're making the right diet and lifestyle choices, and it doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to be a big time burden. Just 30 to 60 minutes of moderate exercise can increase your irisin, can improve your insulin metabolism, and could improve your leptin communication with your brain. And that'll really, really help your body to become a fat burning machine, which is what we want. So enjoy your exercise today. I'm enjoying mine, and we'll talk to you next time. Keep it real.